We talked about the man, the myth, the legend, Clessie Cummins, and now we're talking about his legacy. Welcome to the Liquid Dinosaur Show, and of course, on today's adventure, you have Doc and the Ewok themselves. Today, we're going to talk about the legacy of Clessie Cummins and what Cummins has turned into today. This is going to be a multiple-part video. Thank you guys for showing. Please like, comment, and subscribe to us so we can keep giving us good content. And Doc is going to take us all the way back to 1918.
You know, the one thing about Clessie Cummins when this all started is we look at the fact that there were multiple engines at this time that all looked the same. You have a lot of the John Deere engines that Buda did engines. You had, as we found out with the Kohler, they had engines back then. Everybody had a brand of engine, but Clessie Cummins' legacy was so broad, you know, when, like we said, at 12 years old, the guy built a steam engine to help pump water. Then he went on to be a mechanic for an Indy 500 winning team. He designed and increased the volume of fuel systems to deal with from a guy that came across the water and said, I just want to make a better fuel system. And Clessie took this sucker off. So the legacy of this man is just beyond mention. Here's a man who didn't have a degree. He didn't have engineering in his background. He just had, I'm Clessie Cummins. And that's what we're dealing with and how important that was to the Cummins engine industry from 1918, 1919 on up through the years, how he took something that was just a thought process and made it into the company that we know today. So we're going to start a little bit here with the groundbreaking technology. And the one thing that we forget about in this whole spectrum is how Rudolf Diesel fed into this for them. Because these guys, even though there was no internet and all this other stuff, were working off of each other's equipment. Because even in Rudolf Diesel, he was in that area too. If we look at the fact that up in that upper north country, there was a lot of people that were dealing in that same age and era, the diesels, the gas, the propane, even with the generators. We saw a whole bunch of these men that were self-taught take this industry to what we know it to be today. You got anything there, you walk?
Yeah, well, and to kind of feed into that, at 11 years old, when Clessie came up with a steam engine, he did it from scratch. He's using used pieces of iron, melting them down in wood. You know, something that we use, like sand or like something else for to, get our molds. He's using wood. And, and if you want to, since you brought up Rudolf Diesel, Clessie compared to Rudolf Diesel, their whole idea for why they wanted to do this was to help their family. Clessie built his first steam engine to help his family farm to get water. Rudolf Diesel came up with a diesel engine so he can help the industry because his dad was a leather worker. That was the whole point behind it. They probably went into this not thinking what they were about to do.
True that. It's like, and how they took off of each other's idea and made it better. With Clessie taken from the Havid deal and taking that and making it a completely different system in his name, but it was completely better. Where this guy, he took it to a point where, he's scratching his head and saying, well, I don't know where I can go here. Clessie says, hold my beer. Or we said, hold my whiskey.
Probably. But, it's interesting you brought that up, because like in 1918, when they went to the Netherlands to do the Havid demonstration, if you look at what the engine was, it's completely different than what Clessie was selling.
Absolutely.
Because Clessie turned it into a single injection, direct injection system. Because it was side injected if you look at the original motor.
Oh, yeah.
And then, even like Clessie looking at this like, okay, we made it better, but he's like, the hell with this. And 2 years later, in 1921, he decided to come up with his own engine.
Yep. And then in the process, it's like we're saying, to be able to patent all of these processes. We know that we talked in that last video about the backing, the monetary backing. But here's Clessie patenting all of these processes that he's now taken, from someone's idea and then made it his own. He didn't take and patent their idea. He said, no, that ain't going to work for what I want.
Well, then, even on the back burner of that, I mean, we make it seem like this was easy, but if you like really start going into actual personal journals between him and William, so I don't know if you found those or not.
No, I
You
never
really
did.
got to go dig in to find them. But if you start reading them, the Irwins really made Clessie prove himself when he was a chauffeur for him and a part-time mechanic.
I can just imagine.
So, from 11 to 20 years old, Clessie is just blood, sweat, and tears into everything. And it paid off for him because William, if it wasn't for William, we wouldn't have Cummins.
That kind of reminds me of, I don't know, you and I in the mechanical end of it, and we're probably, even though I'm well in advance of you in years, would take a lawnmower or something apart to see about how it worked, and then put it back together. And of course, some of them didn't run, some of them did. But you think about like that with Clessie, as he's studying all of this that's going on around him, and they're pushing him to be better. But he's studying, okay, this gas engine does this, this, and this, and this. This with this system here, it gets better, but it goes something here. Trial and error, or as we call it now, research and development, was unheard of back then. It was okay. Well, I got a pile of smoky parts in the parking lot. That didn't work. Now I got to go back to the drawing board and start again. So that was kind of interesting in seeing that.
But not just that. So, we're also talking about a time where service manuals, quick serve didn't exist.
Excuse me. Yeah, exactly.
I'd love to find it, but I'm pretty sure he's got, just binders full of stuff of just notes.
Yeah.
Even from the Havid engine. Just the fact that he took it and revamped it to make it his own, and then still decided to say, you want to what? This isn't working the way I wanted it. At this time, he had, 32 patents in the works?
Yeah.
All for fuel.
Yeah, exactly. All for fuel systems.
And I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. So we know in 1970 is when Cummins started making the emissions push.
Yeah.
But Clessie is sitting there focusing strictly on fuel economy in the 20s. That's just mind-blowing just to think about.
And in the back of his mind, I'm just speculating here. In the back of his mind, I got black smoke coming out of this thing here. You know what I mean? So he's already thinking about, where does that come from, And unfortunately, we know in that era that there was a certain amount of it that you aren't going to stop. And if you've been around the 70s and whatnot in the trucks, you saw semis with a whole bunch of coal in this going up the backside of the mountains. So that had a lot to he's thinking in, okay, we're not getting fuel economy, okay, we go away from the 40 miles to gallon that he got, right? And he's looking at this and he says, how can we make this better? And we know they did to a certain extent. But then also, just a little prick on that EPA, when the EPA come on the scene, that killed the economy. We know that.
Uh-huh. But, back in the 70s, we also had the legendary Detroit two-stroke engines that everybody loves to talk about.
Yeah.
Cummins was messing around with two-strokes in the 30s and gave up on it by 30. What was it, 30? Let's see if I find my note on it. When did they do the second round of Indy?
That would have been, yeah.
I'm seeing if I'm trying to find it, but yeah, I think you know off the top of your head, don't you?
31.
31 is the first round. 34 is the second time.
Okay, I was one page down.
But 34, they put two different engines. Not to interrupt you, but there are two different engines that were two-stroke.
Yeah.
But that's the last time we've seen a Cummins two-stroke.
The problem, if you've ever been around a two-stroke at Detroit, they were amazing engines. But if you happen to pop the seal on a piston or a wrist pin, you're going to put a lot of oil in the parking lot.
I was gonna say they like oils.
Yeah, they do. I mean, seriously. And the thing is that a lot of people don't know this, but railroaders would. The electromotive division, the EMD, was two-stroke engines.
Were they
So,
really?
yes, we had four-stroke and two-stroke. The GEs were four-stroke, and the EMDs were two-stroke. So it's interesting to see these. When I worked on the railroad, I worked on the two-strokes. I worked on them all as a machinist for the railroad. I worked on EMDs, and it was like they were great big two-strokes. And we had the same thing. We had what was called on them airbox drains, so they couldn't drain all the time. Well, we start seeing EPA tie into it, and you know where I'm going here.
Yeah.
If you didn't jump the airbox drains, she was going to gurgle a bit and gurgle on her own oil. So it was interesting to go through all of that. I also rebuilt the Detroit diesels. The military was, replete with diesels in there. You had your 4-cylinder, 6-cylinder, and then a V8, in all of our track vehicles. And so you was dealing with two-stroke or two cycles in everything that we did. And we had the same issues then. With the blower, you'd break quill shafts and did puke oil all over the place. So, you always dealt with all of this.
Right. So at this point, I know we keep jumping back and forth with you guys, but so we're gonna kind of fill in the gaps here. 1918. If you go back and if you didn't watch the Clessie video, 1918, Clessie and his partner at the time, William G. Irwin, went to the Netherlands to the RM Havid factory, and they were the first ones to get an international an agreement, and they were the only ones in America at the time to actually sell, manufacture, and warranty, wasn't it, for the RM Havid engine?
Yeah.
Which, as soon as Clessie got back, he said to hell with this injection system and did his own.
Yeah, true.
Then he was fed up with it by 21. But you know what? Before we go into that, so in February 3rd, 1919, Cummins, what was it? What was the first name? It was Cummins Engine Manufacturing.
Right.
Was created, and Clessie was the president of the company. William was the financier because he comes from a baker family. He also happens to be on the United States Department of Imports.
Yeah, and revenue, whatnot.
Yeah, so pretty much he was the one that said, we can bring this in, and he's the one who did the paperwork. It's kind of easy when you're, I guess, in government. If you can look at that however you want. We're just going to just kind of look at it as it helped out in this situation. But, at this point, you also had the Miller family, which was William's nephew, that was very close to Clessie. And as we were talking about at the beginning of the video, Clessie was a chauffeur and a part-time mechanic for them. He also worked for a automotive manufacturer, and that's how he met Ray Huron for the Indy 500. So Clessie's always had a thing for the Indy 500, which is going to come back really soon. And it's actually they still sponsor the Indy 500, as far as I can tell.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of them, they sponsor a lot.
So, and then the first engine, the RM Havid, was a compression ignition oil engine. That's what their selling point was, but Clessie also altered it in 1921. He came out with his own one, and he did a direct injection Model F, which was Clessie's actual first engine. Well, that was 21, and then that went to 24. 24, he ended up doing a 1 or a 2-cylinder variant, 12.5 horsepower at 600 RPM, and it ended in 1931. And also at this time, they were doing the HM Havid engines, and they were doing the Model F, right? Model F, yeah, the Model F, in Williams' garage.
Yeah.
And they said, hell with that. In 2026, no, not 2026, my bad, 1926, getting ahead of myself here, Doc, is when the Columbus, Indiana engine plant is purchased. And it is the one that they are still into today, which is also pretty crazy, if you ask me.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Cummins to death prior to this video, and I'm not very happy with the current Cummins, but the Legacy is pretty interesting. Also raises some eyebrows.
Yeah. No kidding.
What you looking up, Doc?
Well, I was looking when we was talking about the patents and whatnot that Cummins' brother and colleague Don summed up their efforts with saying it was fun. We did it because it had to be done. It's
Can't
like,
argue with that.
oh, wow. It's, well, someone's got to do it.
And, kind of going back a little bit, if you didn't watch the Clessie video, we recommend you go do it because that video has a lot of information on it. But going back to it and everything, so with the Model F, Clessie and William decided to get in touch with Sears catalog, and you can buy their engines in Sears. Long story short, it was not a good deal. It ended up hurting them more than it did good with the warranty process.
Yeah.
So William went to Clessie, and this is probably like the first time they ever really actually had an actual business argument. Said, look, this isn't working. You need to focus on reliability and dependability. And Clessie said, hold my whiskey. We're not doing that. We're getting out of agriculture. We're going on the road.
Yeah.
And, I could just imagine the look on William's face when he heard that. Say, we've been doing agriculture for how long? We've either done agriculture or racing, and now you want to go on the road? Plus, he's like, yep. So in 1928 is when he released the Model U, a 6.3 liter, 1,000 RPM, 85 horse, which we end up falling in love with that engine because of what he ends up doing.
Well, he ended up taking it across country when there weren't no interstates, and
that
some of them roads weren't even roads.
Right. 1929 cracks me up. Just, I don't know why, but in my head, I just imagine how this conversation goes. 1929 is when the stock market crashes, and
right,
they almost bankrupt him.
Yeah.
What were you going to say about that? Because you actually had a very good way of explaining it.
Well, that was where they said, okay, if you don't prove yourself, we're going to take your company and your foundry and all that away. And he basically, once again, said, hold my beer, and went cross country with it for, what, $1.34? $11 worth of fuel?
So, the Model U was a single disc fuel system, which we believe is the precursor to the swash pump.
Yeah.
Which the swash pump was in the Dodge's T-84 1939 engine.
Well, and then this note here says they had obstacles on this cross-country route because a lot of these bridges weren't designed to handle the weight of a truck, and a lot of them weren't even bridges. And it says numerous detours because of washed-out bridges. They had to ford some streams near Amarillo, drive across the river and whatnot, which I live south of Amarillo, so I can imagine some of them tricks down through there.
So kind of going back to what we were talking about and everything. So the stock market just crashes. And they're over here like, oh, we're going to shut you down. He's over here like, hold my whiskey. I'm going to take that Model U and I'm going to put it in a car, which has not been heard of at this point.
Yeah.
He did this prior to Dodge doing it. Probably where Dodge got the idea from, honestly.
Yeah.
And not only did he do it, but he was bragging about 40 miles a gallon back in 29. Do you realize what it took to get 40 miles a gallon in modern day?
Yeah.
We had to use a hybrid system in a small little 2.2 liter engine.
Yeah.
And even then, sometimes they don't get 40. And they are gay looking. Excuse the French, but the Priuses are kind of weird looking.
It says
then you
here
got Clessie. What?
No, go ahead.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but he got back in your 1929, like, hold my whiskey, we're doing it. And he did it. Which makes me really ask the question, if he's going to do this with a mechanical fuel system, why can't we get that kind of fuel economy now?
With electronics and stuff. It said that a truck tried to do that coast-to-coast run earlier, and it collapsed 43 bridges and culverts, so they were really suspect about this happening. And it went on to say the truck and crew were forced to endure other problems as they headed west, and one day, a rocker arm failed and a cabin fire occurred. Other than the burnt cabin seats, no serious damage was sustained. Then the most hair-raising experience took place as the truck, with its brakes failing, drove down Cajon Pass. And I just got thinking, well, he's probably thinking, boy, I need to do some Jake brakes on this thing.
You said, Was it Clessie that did that?
Yeah, said they were gaining speed, and he spotted a freight train directly ahead of him. He frantically began downshifting in an attempt to slow the truck and avoid running
Yeah,
over the
that was the
train.
story. Yeah, that's the story I missed out. But yeah, that was 55, but come on. I'm telling you, most people, like majority of my generation, would have been like, "To hell with this, I'm done." And he's over here like almost dying. I gotta get this thing to stop better. And instead of putting bigger brakes or like some way of slowing the trans down faster, he's over here like, "I wonder if I can retard the engine to do it." And it just,
Using the exhaust brake to do this, and you can imagine him trying to downshift, because like this thing here, there'd have been yeah, no kidding, they weren't helical gears, they were spur cuts, well, just like the most trucks are, but he's trying to grind a couple pounds of hamburger just to get this thing in gear. And it's funny because it said truck fleet manufacturers took notice of the impressive statistics on this run, so they started buying Cummins engines. That's like, he nearly killed himself, but it was impressive.
do you think he kind of said, "That was fun, let's do it again"?
Yeah.
And he did it how many more times?
Well, and the next one was in his display. He completes 1,460 nonstop miles around the Indianapolis Speedway with a Model H powered Indiana truck, a feat would drive home Cummins' reputation for reliability and durability. 1,460 nonstop miles.
What was it? And then, yeah, I can't remember the actual number. What was his, at the same time he's doing this, what was his track time?
30 miles an hour.
No, not that, but like how many hours did he have on the track during this time?
Oh,
Because
man.
at 31, he entered his his own Indy 500 car. Not with Ray Huron, his
Yeah.
very own.
Let's see. The Indy Speedway's what, 2 mile or 2.5 mile?
I don't remember. 2.5 miles, because that's what they call the Brickyard.
Two. That's 7,000 laps.
Hold on, let me
At
see if I can find it, because I know I have it written down.
33, an average speed of 33 miles an hour.
Average speed is, which is like, yeah, I'm pretty sure he was cooking back then.
Well, yeah, that's average speed. He may have, got.
And it was Packard was the car that he put that Model U in, by the way. I'm trying to find. Okay. So in 1931, I don't know why this like just blows my mind. So in 1931, he logged 13,535 miles at Indy Motor Speedway. On top of putting a diesel in a Model U, traveling from coast to coast, because he also did the bus in what,
Yeah.
no, 34, he put 2 new Cummins engines to test at Indy 500. It was 30, that was 34. 32 is when he did the H-powered Mack bus to go to New York to LA in 78 hours at 125 horsepower Model H equipped Mack truck.
That consumed $7.63 worth of fuel.
Yeah, but what's $763 worth of fuel compared to now time? Which is going to be, and I'm just going to jump ahead here, because one of the talking points on the Cummins website was, sorry guys, let me go through my notes. I want to make sure I get the right info for you guys. So in 1936, Cummins brags about reaching its first $1 million in sales.
Yeah.
Do you know what the equivalent to 1 million in 1936 compared to today's standard is? And yes, I looked it up.
Did you?
$22 million.
Wow.
Just needless to say, that money went a little bit further back then than it does now.
Yeah, no kidding. Well,
okay, we missed
that fuel from the diesel systems, that wasn't, back then, diesel wasn't exactly this filtered yippee-ki-yay stuff we got, you know what I mean?
Well, it also had sulfur in it.
It was rather thick,
That's true.
It was, probably not the equivalent of motor oil, but it wouldn't be far from it if it was cold.
Yeah, that's true. Definitely gelatin was a definite issue back then.
True.
Not for Clessie. He didn't care. He figured it out.
Yeah.
And, it's inspiring, and you gotta give, respect where it's due. He's doing this in a time where nobody else has done it.
True.
what you know, let's keep in mind, how old was a diesel engine at this point?
Would have been, well, wow, we can go back probably pretty close to 10, 11 years old, because we know that Kohler was doing with them back then, and Buda was doing with them.
Kohler didn't go diesel until 2008, remember? They're using gas and
that's right.
natural gas.
But we got diesel, Rudolph Diesel.
Rudolph Diesel started it in the late 1800s. I want to say it was 87, and he didn't perfect it until shortly before his death.
Yeah.
In early 1900s.
We've got a lot of guys that were dreaming of it, but the perfection of it was up to Cummins. And even when you go back to some of the other trucks that were out there, they didn't design their own engine. The only one that I know that played around, and I don't know their year on it, would have been Mack. They did their own engine.
I didn't think they started that until late 40s.
Well, probably because he put a Cummins in a Mack school bus or bus.
But then I did the research like years ago, and I'll double check the information, but I don't think Cat was even using diesels at this point. I think they're still using steam engines.
Yeah.
I don't think Cat went diesel until the 50s.
Yeah.
Well, that's a different video, not to get off track here, but I'm just trying to get the point across to make sure you guys picking up what I'm putting down here of, this is a guy that, like Doc said, he had no engineering degree. He left his family farm at age 11 to go be a mechanic. And he's doing all this stuff. And, this is back in a time when you went off of fuel. There was no service manual. There wasn't. The only service manual he would have had is the one he created. I think we had a lot of F around to find out going on back then. And, I went digging a little bit more on Clessie.
Yeah.
And William. I couldn't find one person that said anything negative about him.
Yeah.
The closest thing I had that I found is when Junior was talking about him. All Junior said is dad had his bad days, but overall, he took good care of mom and us kids.
Yeah.
He was good about keeping personal life and work life separate. It's like, dang. All the employees had anything to say about him, had nothing but high praise for him and William. Which, going to William and everything, he has my respect for what he did. So yeah, now we're all the way out. So let me go through my notes real quick. Let's fill in the gaps, because we did jump from 1921 to 34. So let me just throw these dates and everything out here. Then me and Doc will kind of fill in a little bit. So we know in 1928 is when the Model U begins. It's a 6.3 liter, 1,000 RPM, 85 horse. I know I said that already, but I'm just repeating it. In 1929, we had three major things that happened. We had the market crash. We had the creation of the single disc fuel system, or the swash pump.
Yeah.
I would have loved to see this thing. The Model K, an 18.9 liter, 400 to 700 horsepower at 4,000 RPM.
Well, that was a precursor to all their K engines.
That was a giant engine. I'm not too sure if it's 18.9. That's the only thing I could find.
Yeah.
Couple sites said it was 18.9. Some said it was 11. It's like, okay, I went off of the average of what I could find.
Right.
Well, those are the specs that I was given. Then we had the market crash. While he's looking that up, I'll just kind of go. And then, like we said, 1931 is the first round at Indy. It was car number 8 at the Indy 5. It ran the race without a pit stop. It finished 13 out of 33. Well, without a pit stop, that's pretty good. Then 31. It had 125 of lap hours with the number 8 race car, which was a Model U powered at the Indiana track.
Right.
Then we had an H-powered Indiana truck that went 14,600 miles nonstop. I know Doc brought that up. Oh, let's see. We had a 1932. We had a redesigned transport truck with a Model H, which is the same truck that Clessie used to haul the number 8 race car. And, of course, something I think we should bring up, but Doc has something to say.
No, I was just scratching my head.
Okay, so, and I'm going to go on a little rant here. Me and Doc did it off camera. We're going to do it again. I'm going to be straight up with you guys. I am not happy with the new 6.7. I've never wanted to smack an engineer more in my life till now, and I will explain why. In 1932, the H672 started its production run. Why is that engine equivalent? Because that is the precursor to the 5.9. That is the mother to the 5.9, which means that the flat tappets have been used since 32 and changed in 19. They literally fixed a problem that was not a problem. And I have very little evidence to go off of this. We are going to go further into the research. With the new 6.7, I personally believe that Cummins has lost their touch on it.
You know, not to take anything away from that, that Model K was a 4-cylinder.
What? It was a 19-liter 4-cylinder?
4-cylinder engine. It debuted in 1909, debuted the 4-cylinder Model K.
Is it really 19?
Well, that's all I can find that there on it, but the picture of it is a 4-cylinder.
That's insane. Doc, what do you have to say about the H672?
That blows my mind completely out of the water. Let's go back to the K here. A 6 3/4 inch bore with a 9-inch stroke. There were two versions, the 4 and the 6. It was by far the largest engine they had built. By the early 30s, it had matured to become a larger Model L engine. 35 and over 35 years of production, there were over 2,000 of them made.
So that's probably where I'm getting the 11 liter from.
In 3, 4, and 6 cylinders. You learn stuff.
And I thought we went pretty thorough on this research too.
I did too.
I guess you can never go too thorough.
It
guys, we've been researching this for like the last 3 weeks.
The 6-cylinder tipped the scales at 12,000 pounds. That's the equivalent of quite a bit.
Well, that probably explains why I was finding 11 liters, because it's probably the 4-cylinder is an 11 liter.
Probably.
And then the 6-cylinder is probably a 19 liter.
That's crazy.
If I were to guess. But I'm not going to do the engine math right now.
Yeah.
All right, you ready to go on this tangent? Or you holding off on this tangent?
No, let's go. I got to keep this here so we can pump this picture in our video.
Okay. The 8.
That just blows my mind. That back in the 30s, that was designed. That was original precursor to this 5.9 liter. Or, we're hanging liters on them now, but that would have been what? 5.7, 355, 377 cubic inch, somewhere in there. The 350 was a 5.7 liter. So that would be somewhere around 6 liter or something like that. You know what I mean?
Okay, so it was a 5.9.
Yeah.
It looks like, according to my notes, it was a 5.9. It had 125 horse at 3,500 RPM.
I was doving away from the liter. They didn't call them liters back then. That's that metric garbage they brought on us. But anyway, to get away, a Chevy 350 engine was originally a 5. They changed that to 5.7 liters, even though it's
5.3, isn't it?
5.3 is a 305. But anyway, it's a 350 was 5.7, so this was if they called it their precursor to 5.9, it'd been somewhere around 355, 360 cubic inches of, in our cubic inch version. And I ain't dovetailing away from that. I'm just simply saying, that being said, and it's the precursor, there was probably not a great lot changed in the dynamics of that engine between then and 84, you know what I mean? Yeah, things changed, the aesthetics, the view, whatnot, pistons, probably rings, and as the, R&D ramped up and things got better, supposedly.
Which we not to interrupt you, Doc, but we will put on the screen somewhere, probably like right here, the differences between the two, because we are going to look into it.
But you stop and think.
You off, Doc.
You stop and think, 1932, they were getting what kind of mileage with that?
Well, the Model U was getting 40 miles a gallon.
So that's, to put it mildly, is pathetic for us, And our 5.9s are what? Maybe 12, 13, 14? Some have gotten better. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying, if you go off of what they were saying, the rated miles per gallon for this, but it's nowhere near what he was getting with that back then.
Well, if you want to go off at that, then we got to talk about the elephant in the room about that. We have electronics, and we have common rail.
and which should have made it better, and which should have made things work a lot better, which should have made better fuel economy. But that three-letter agency made things worse.
But even the P pump, the original 12 valve had a P pump, which was, it was an external injector, but they weren't single orifice like what we're used to, and they were also tunable. These were this was 32. It was a swash plate style pump with a single orifice.
Yeah.
The point I was trying to bring up, Doc, and what really just irritates me is 32 to even 32 to 80, 84. That's 50 years.
Yeah.
That we had R&D on this engine.
Yeah.
50 years. And I'm willing to bet you the only thing that really changed was turbo to non-turbo.
So the displacement of the 5.9 to 359.
Okay.
So bores 4.02, strokes 4.72, compression ratio of 17 to 1, and that's the original one that went in 1984.
Well, we saw it in 89, but we know it was 84 now because of the RAM video.
So,
and I am going to beat this one I am going to beat a dead horse on this one. We had 50 years of R&D just from when we saw it originally in RAM. And then we carried it, and, the 5.9 Commodore is a 12-valve base. The main internals are the freaking same.
Yeah.
We didn't see a change in internals until we got the 6.7.
Right.
And the 6.7, it just got a bigger crank to get more stroke out of it, 20 over piston, and we got a slightly bigger cam. But it was still a flat tap.
Yeah.
So we've had almost 100 years of flat tap it. Why did we change it randomly?
Yeah.
There's no reason for it. And now we're going to glow plugs. And that would tell you also, Doc, I'm pretty sure from 32, it was a spin-on filter.
Let me go back.
All the way to 25 was it? Well, 24 was a spin-on filter. Why are we going to a cartridge filter now? Why are we going to glow plugs? Why are we doing what we're doing?
According to the picture on the Model K, it would have been a cartridge filter. I don't know. I don't know if that's oil. I mean, I can't tell. I'm assuming it's oil. It might be a fuel filter.
Again, somewhere like right here in between me and Doc. We'll get the info for you. Because we want to make sure we give you guys the right facts, but I'm also throwing some of my personal opinions into this. I mean, I'm coming through and through. But this 2025 6.7s is really just, it's got my blood boiling a little bit. That, and there's really not much of a horsepower and torque gain off this last one to really justify what they did.
Yeah.
Also, we have a Patreon video where we talked about, at the time, we didn't know about all the 6.7 stuff, but back when the 7.2 was a rumor, we did a Patreon video on it. Guys, go check that out. I'll link it in the description. But yeah, that's 32. And then we also had the first ever U.S. commercial diesel fleet, which was, do you remember the company behind that?
Yeah, that would have been, just a minute. Sorry about that.
Yeah, sorry guys. I have 6 pages of notes just on Cummins. Then we have an additional 4 on Clessie. And yeah, we're kind of going back and forth, but we're trying to give you a very good history lesson of Cummins and kind of just some of the stuff because a lot of the stuff we got off the website, well, there's a lot of it they don't go into depth with it, so there's key points that we think or actually should be searched a little bit more. Like the fact that Model U that he put in the that Packard car was an all aluminum engine.
Yeah,
which is insane.
Purity Food Services, a trucking company that was intercoastal, coast to coast.
Okay.
That was the first trucking company that put Cummins in it.
Well, good for them. I hope they still run Cummins if they're still around.
They had the Model H in them. That's
crazy. Well, it tells you how good the Model H was, because that's what Clessie loved, the Model H and the Model U.
Yeah.
Oh, man, just. Yeah, so we talked about we forgot about 1933. Now I'm looking at my notes. How did we forget about that, Doc?
I don't know. But
the first
the same thing.
Distribution.
The same thing with that 4-cylinder Model K, that looks like a cartridge oil filter also. Got 4 bolts around the top of it to hold the outside can up. So
Okay, so we're gonna kind of talk about, kind of finish up to where we left off to 1934. Then we'll continue this video in the second part. But we forgot about the 1933, the first distribution ship with Watson and Mechanic.
yeah, let me
That was
pull
a big deal.
it. First distributorship, yeah. Forward thinking
That was a
practices.
big deal.
Oh yeah, they wasn't nobody that did that distributorship. With that distributorship would have been the idea with Cummins, Clessie that come up with warranties and stuff like that. See, that was one thing that killed Sears, as we said, was they had to send that engine back to Cummins to get it worked on because they didn't have they didn't have
It
technicians.
wasn't necessarily that. It was the return policy. It was the fact that farmers would buy them from Sears, beat the piss out of them, then return them.
Yeah,
That's
and
what
then
did
they'd
that.
be refurbed by Cummins. But you know that thing there, Cummins would have flipped the bill to ship it back, and yeah, I can see why they pulled the cork on that one.
And then 34 is when when Clessie decided to put 2 Indy 500 cars together.
Yeah,
Which those were the 2-strokes, right? His first and last 2-stroke.
Yeah, other companies that were building diesels were opting for the 2-stroke then, where Cummins said, okay, I'm going to put one together, but I got to tell you, this 4-stroke's where it's at.
Right. And he proved it with Indy, and he proved it with other things he had going on.
Yeah.
But, well, we kind of went over more than what we wanted to. We are trying a couple things. We're going to do a multiple part series on this, see how it does.
Yeah. Well, we can pull a cork. We can pull a cork here and take the end of this, stop it where you want, and put it into the other one, and we'll pull it forward from there. Because I was just going. We also got going up to 34 and 35 and the Indy 500 again, and man, we got so much information.
We literally got to 36. That's as far as we got.
Yeah, I know.
Well, we kind of brushed on 70 and 91, but no, I was thinking we would just end it, and we'll do the outro, then we'll start fresh with the next one.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we can do the outro, and then I want to say something. Well, okay? Because you're gonna edit this. Land Rover or Rover Company is the ones who first designed the exhaust brake in 1905.
Really?
But it never got going because they didn't have. Clessie yes, it was exhaust brake, but he did it hydraulically.
And you used the compression to feed to the exhaust.
Well, both of them used compression, but Rover used a camshaft actuated, where you'd step on it's like, what one was it? The M11, I think it was, but had that. No, the 870 had the dedicated exhaust lobe. 871, I can't remember. Anyway, they had a dedicated exhaust lobe for exhaust brakes. Oh,
you're talking about the CM 871 ISX.
Right. That was what Rover did. They used the cam lobe to actuate it. But when Clessie did the Jake brake, you'd step on a pedal, it'd be the same thing, and it'd actuate this rocker so it'd hold the valve open. How they did it, I don't know. I think we just hit an error. Yeah. But anyway, Clessie did it hydraulically. He was the one that took engine oil to run the Jake brakes. Remember? Flip the switch, locks. Remember? You remember we did the whole design? Okay, outro. You want to do it? You want me to? Go ahead. I'm holding my kidneys in. All right, this has been another adventure into 1918 to 1936 with the Liquid Dinosaur Show. Of course, on this adventure, you've been accompanied by Doc and the Automotive Ewok. This is part 1 of a multiple-part series. Please, guys, like, comment, and subscribe to this. And, of course, share it. We have more to come. And if you haven't watched the Clessie video, it's in the link in the description. So is our Patreon video. Thank you, guys.